Let's move. Blaze of justice. We stand as one. Are you gonna give me orders?
Welcome back, everybody, as we get ready for some red hot and exciting TVZ. Elazer versus INnoVation starting up in just a few moments. A series which you're just telling me, Roddy, is maybe one where Elazer is hoping to make a point for once.
Yeah, historically, it's not really gone in his favor. They have played 8 times against each other, and INnoVation is 8-0 against Elazer in series. They often say that numbers don't lie, but eventually numbers do change, Waddy. No numbers ever stay the same. And what's actually interesting as well is that the last time they played against each other was an online tournament that was brought to you by Shopify, just like TSL is also brought to you by Shopify. And Elazer actually took a 2-0 lead back then against INnoVation, and that's when the whole question mark thing, I don't know if that's where it started, but I remember multiple question marks being dropped in that series, and it felt that Elazer was actually going to go all the way, but then Inno turned in the round. And of course, I feel like it's also worth mentioning that both these guys had an amazing last week series, right, where Elazer was going up against, well, I don't know if that was last week or the week before, but he went up against Hero Marine, where he was down 0-1 and didn't look that good. And then we had that game on Golden Ball where it felt like he shouldn't win. And then bam, Elazer just making Miko magic happen, turning things around. And then INnoVation had that insane series, of course, against Reynor, where after the first 2 games, nobody in his right mind thought he was going to win it. And then he just turned everything around. So let's just see what happens this time. This is, of course, a lower bracket match. That means that the loser is out. He's done. On the top left side of Nightshade, this is the main base of Ego Esports Elazer.
Yay!
In the bottom right-hand side, our blue Korean Terran looking to keep his win streak alive in his INnoVation.
Yay!
Now, Wardy, what did you think when you saw that INnoVation versus Reynor game on Golden Wall? Like, did you tune out? Did you walk away? Did you go to the kitchen? Like, tell me, how did you experience that as a viewer?
A lot of head shaking, a lot of walking away from the screen and coming back to check if it was still there. It was not what anybody expected, right?
This is one of these games where you're like, all right, any moment now, you know, like the Cyclones will go down, right? The Cyclones are going to get surrounded. There's going to be a great fight. And I felt like I was a guy on the meme. He's like, no, you can't just keep making Cyclones while being down 40 SCVs. And then INnoVation is like, haha, Battle Mac goes brrr. Like, that's kind of how I experienced that game. I was like, this is not supposed to happen. But Inno is capable of creating magic sometimes, and that was definitely one of those moments.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, I actually do think I was looking, I was like, no, there's no way, stop, Inno, please. I was so disappointed, I like tapped away, and I tapped back, and he was still alive. I was like, Inno, why? I just want to see the next game. It's so painful to see, and then he actually turns it around. I'm like, God damn it, INnoVation, this is why I keep being a fan of you at the moment. Yeah, it was madness.
Now, Elazer is one of these players, though, that can truly catch lightning in a bottle, right? He just goes on these streaks sometimes, and you don't even get a heads up. It's not like he's been dominating online tournaments for months or something. It's like, no, he just enters a tournament, and of course, there have been examples of that, and I think, you know, the one that really stands out is that GSL vs. the World, where he barely got in by voting on the last day because a famous Polish YouTuber made a video saying like, hey, you guys should vote for Elazer. And people are like, oh, come on. Like, you know, we want somebody else. Elazer's not going to get much done. And he's like, oh, yeah? And he just played the tournament of his life, made it to the grand finals, even looked really good in the last 4 games against Serral. And it kind of felt that TSL was also going to be one of these tournaments for Elazer. And this is already a good run, but if he gets the job done here in this best of 5, then it really becomes another remarkable run by him.
Yep. Absolutely. It's always been a good run, right? We're top 6 of the tournament now, and you know, with how many great players were in this, I think top 6 for anybody is a great achievement, and Elazer's really taken down some greats on the way here, right? Like, you know, he came in and he advanced over Serral, obviously, initially, and he was also winning over Hero. And when we talk about Europe, you know, those are 2 of the bigger names in Europe to take down. So the only thing I would say is, of course, that Elazer maybe wasn't really challenged by any of the Korean players until he went up against Su, but then he even took Su to 5 games.
Yep.
And ends up here now against INnoVation.
That is one series that's probably stinging a little bit, though, right? Because obviously Stu is now in the upper bracket finals. You can say, like, there's no shame in losing to Stu, and there is never a shame to it. But I think that was a winnable series for Elazer. There was a lot of potential in a couple of the games where it felt like one or two, mistakes that he made. If he would have just avoided those, and those were even personal errors often, then he really could have turned that series around and could have actually ended up on top. And then you're suddenly guaranteed top 3 in the tournament. So that's, I think, a tough one to get over. But let's see if he got things together, as he did go for that sort of forward base on Nightshade, like he's done before on this map. He prefers this base. Obviously, it's a bit easy to get creep towards the center of the map. And we all know that when it comes to TVZ, when it comes to those Marine tank pushes, the center is everything. If Zerg can get good engagements there with creep, with banelings, they can obviously run away with the game of a Supreme Economy. But it's so damn difficult to control the center of Nightshade.
Yeah, Terrans love this map. It's so easy to get in the center. It's all very choked up. It's very difficult to flank an army on Nightshade. It's also very difficult to force an army to pull back on Nightshade, because even if you counterattack, it's one of these maps where you just very easily pull back to your third base to defend the counter, and you're already almost back in the middle of the map again. So it gives Elazer very small timing windows to really clean out the center and to really hold his own if INnoVation gets aggressive. As INnoVation's Viking, 2 kills already, 2 overlords early. He's going to start tagging up one on the edge of this main base. Don't expect this one to go down. Queen should protect this, but really good start for the Viking, especially when it's supply blocks Elazer.
I actually think you might be able to get this one as well. And I think the Viking should be able to get out of there. I mean, that's nice. This is not going to end the game, of course, but these are victories. Elazer has now been supply blocked for way longer than you would ever want to be supply blocked as a Zerg in this game.
Yeah, this is brutal. I mean, 81 out of 82. He snuck a few units in here or there, but he's still waiting on an overlord. Look at all the money he has.
Yep. Yeah, and it's not like he's got 2 Evo chambers already. He's going to drop them now. Maybe that's something he should have done before while he was supply blocked, just to free up a couple of drones. These upgrades are going to be late, but baning speed is going to be very quick. And now it is important for these queens to really get to work, because obviously INnoVation is doing a very standard TVZ builder over here, right? He went with a quick triple CC opening. He's got Stim already done, and he's just trying to kind of be a nuisance in the middle of the map with his Hellions, with his Reaper. We can see that Elazer is taking 2 fort bases basically at the same time. How is that Viking still getting kills? That Viking is now going to down on this Overlord. No. And Elazer is already supply blocked, so if he loses this one, he's going to be supply blocked for a very long time. MVP Viking, the Polish Viking is back, Marty. How do you think about it?
I mean, how?
Or
how
what?
did you get this much right? No,
How do you feel about it? That's what I tried to say.
How do I feel about it?
Is it gonna get another one?
Yeah, it just flew into it. This Viking.
No, okay, we're giggling, but this is a disaster for Elazer, because Elazer is supposed to be able to take care of it. I'm in the middle of the map. Now the counterattack has a lot of potential. There are no units to save these SCVs at this point. So INnoVation is losing 12 SCVs very quickly here. But he does have a good position already in the center of the map, with the Marines, with the tanks, stimming forward, getting on top of the Queens as well. Where are the banelings, Elazer? He's got a couple coming in from the north side, and that should be enough, especially when the remaining lings of that counterattack come back home and dive on top of these tanks.
Yeah, INnoVation, he actually had one of his tanks fire on the reinforced lings, although, wow, the tanks go down, but Marines are actually the ones standing to win that fight. Obviously, 1-1 upgrades. Against the 0-0, Elazer, you mentioned those upgrades are going to be late. He prioritized Bane speed. But in the end, of course, this fight was kind of Ling versus Marine in the end, and so Marines won that out. Now he'll have to lift up and back away.
And look at Elazer's economy, 58 drones. There's no way that that's ever where he wants to be, right? He's got 5 hatcheries and he's got 58 drones. I know he won that game on Golden Ball against Hero Marine with 66 drones against like 74 SCVs. But this is just not a comfortable position to be in at all for Elazer. That's why he's going to try to squeeze out 10 more. But it obviously means that his army is not going to grow in the next few seconds either. I'm very worried. This is starting to look pretty damn bad for Elazer.
Yeah, this is rough, as we do see the Lings and the Banes coming in from a couple directions. There are Lings fighting reinforcements while this main fight happens. The thing is, these are the sort of trades which INnoVation is completely fine to take, because his economy is in a good spot compared to Elazer's. Elazer only just hitting 70 workers now, so INnoVation can trade, go again, go again. His tank stayed alive, so he still has tank reinforcements here, tank support. These Banes shouldn't get much done, and the few Banes that are up aren't even really enough to contest these Marines.
Nope, there are 10 Banelings morphing at this point, but even 10 Banelings is not really the insane amount of Banes that you really hope for. So this is going to be a fight where Elazer needs a big W, but it feels like the Baneling count just isn't there. The Marines are off creep. We were talking about creep in the center of Nightshade, and INnoVation just looks dominant in this game, man. This was not Elazer's game. That Viking really messed him up. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, this Viking really is kind of the one thing that really set this game off in a bad step for Elazer. And now, yeah, I mean, this is a thing in TPC, right? You fall behind a little bit early, it's so difficult to get back into the game, and even more so on a map like Nightshade. So he couldn't really afford to let that Viking do so much, and yet it did, and hence here we are. Marines and tanks still just trading out in the front here, and again, this is fight. These are fights which INnoVation is completely fine to take. His army supply slowly gets higher and higher. His 2-2 is going to be done before Elazer's as well, so that will be even better trades for a little while. And now Elazer's even struggling to make Banelings on time.
Yep, it's not even close. I mean, the Queens are running out of energy as well. INnoVation is already up 30 supply. Look at the amount of medevacs above these Marines. These Marines can stim for days, even though some of these medevacs are low on HP because they've been surviving for a while. But that's also a very good sign for a town, right? That means that the Queens were never in range to actually put some serious pressure on these medevacs. Elazer is going to try to counterattack, but the counterattack is getting cleaned up by reinforcements. And I think Elazer is going to be forced to tap out any moment now. He was just floating too many resources in this game, and he was supply blocked for way longer than you ever should be supply blocked in a 10-minute game.
Yeah. Maybe TLO should have predicted how many kills the Viking got. That would have been a fun true or false.
I feel like that Viking deserved to retire, by the way. After the 5th Overlord kill, INnoVation just should send it to the left and bottom side of Nightshade and like, you served me well, Medal of Honor. You know, we're done here.
INnoVation is, well, slowing down a little bit, just picking up reinforcements. He's got a 4th base ready to move out in a moment as well. As Elazer's obviously trying to rebuild hatcheries here, there, and everywhere, trying to get up into hive tech. But these are all things which he needs, yes, absolutely, but they are all things which aren't going to help him to deal with this attack in the next few moments, which is going to look pretty deadly.
Yeah, I mean, normally you could say, like, maybe some burrowed Banelings, but obviously there's no burrow in this game either. So the only thing that Elazer can really hope for is that INnoVation just makes a big misstep with his Marines. He's going to try to distract him with a counterattack, and I do like that, because if you make it easy for INnoVation, he will never make a mistake. So maybe these links can force INnoVation to get a little overeager, get too far on creep, lose Marines. But Inno is actually just looking at this and he's like, you know, one fight at a time. I'll take it slow and steady because I know this game is going completely fine for me. So there is no need to rush into anything at this point.
Hatchery on the top side goes down, and that's some nice pickoffs, obviously, here from INnoVation. Just again, another hatch denied. INnoVation is just so calm and confident, right? He's in no rush to like dive in and end this before hive tech comes up online. He just falls back. He's got more upgrades coming in. He's just got his drilling claws for his widow mines that are now being produced instead of siege tanks. Landing that 4th base. He'll have a slight issue here with a few lings running by, but nothing to really stop him taking it for too long. And I mean, when you're 60 supply up, you really are still just waiting for the next fight, which you feel like should probably just end the game in INnoVation's favor.
You know, there are some moments where I'd be like, you know what's crazy, Waddy? If you take a look at INnoVation's vision, he never saw anything in the main base of Elazer, not once. Like, he just saw, like, the corner where that Viking was. But I really think in this game, that's not even something that he was ever worried about. It's not something I was worried about for him either. Because INnoVation always knew where he was. This is the fight where Elazer is going to try to make his last stand. And he does finally have a very decent amount of Banelings, forcing these Marines to run back even further. It was kind of an awkward moment for Inno to fight right before +3 would kick in. But Wade doesn't really matter at this point. INnoVation's army is just so damn big.
It was so expensive for Elazer. That was all of his Banelings, and he had so many of them. Now he doesn't have a single Baneling on the map. He's trying to make Ultralisks, of course, but yeah, it's just not going to be enough, as these Marines are going to keep on stimming. Elazer's going to GG out, and INnoVation will indeed take the first map of this best of 5 series here in the lower bracket. Elazer I mean, you just look back on that one and you say, well, next time I don't lose so many overlords to a Viking. Because
Yeah, exactly. You can lose one on the other side of the map, then you can maybe lose a second. That was a bit too far out of position, but 3 is already pushing it, and 5 is just insane. Like 5 overlords should not happen. And it wasn't even just that, okay, he lost overlords, but he wasn't supply blocked. No, they did supply block him. And then when he was finally on supply block, he lost another one. So he was supply blocked again. You know, a stat that I also like to look at, as I personally, you know, try to like look at things where I feel like I could improve it myself as a player, are the average unspent resources. Now, that's not a stat you should look at if you have a super long game and you're maxed out and stuff like that, right? Because then you will bank up on some resources. But this was basically the kind of game where I think it's important for a Zerg to be on the money and keep your money low. And the average unspent resource for Elazer was like almost 700 there. Like, that's just too high, right? If you play Link Bane against Marines, these skirmishes in the middle of the map, you want to take those fights when you're pretty much broke. When you spend every penny you have on either drones or Banelings or Zerglings, that's when you go for it. 600 or 700 minerals. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's EVT, right? Every fight is so important. Every fight is so close anyway. You know, we've had players talk about how the small advantages early, losing a couple too many drones to a Banshee can just put you behind it, and then you never quite get back in because it is so momentum based. You never quite have enough, and every little fight just puts you a little bit further behind. Just an unfortunate one for Elazer there. You just need to do a little bit better there. As we'll get into a second map on Simulacrum, and hopefully we'll see what Elazer has to bounce back.
I mean, to touch up on what you just said, there are Zerg players who will say that the moment you lose your second creep tumor, the game becomes pretty much unplayable, right? They're like, no. Like, from that point on, it doesn't really matter what you do anymore. And you're sitting here, you're like, well, isn't there like some potential? No, trust me.
No.
You lose that creep tumor, you just never get anything going. All momentum is gone. You basically need to hope that the Terra makes a terrible mistake. I mean, if pros look at matchups like that, and of course, pros do exaggerate a little bit about certain things, but these things do really matter. And especially when you go up against someone like INnoVation, there is no room for errors. And if there is an error, then it should be an error that he's really forcing upon you, right? Because he had a fantastic split or somehow made the best out of a very bad scenario. You can't make it easy on someone like INnoVation. And Elazer just made it a bit too easy for Inno to play a really good game there.
All right, we're going to jump into Simulacrum for game number 2. And hopefully we have Elazer able to kind of gather himself together a little bit and make it work out and get himself into a stronger spot for the mid game, because he can look good when he gets there. Question is, will he get there? Because the top left blue Terran player INnoVation is sending SCVs into the map.
In the bottom right side of Simulacrum, we're looking at the main base of the man that's representing Ego Esports. It is Elazer. Now, I personally would not expect INnoVation to 2 racks or 3 racks after a game like that, right? Now, you can say that Nightshade is really good to macro, so it is more likely for him to proxy barracks on Simulacrum. But after a game like that, I'd be like, all right, he's probably just going to play the same thing again because he thinks he can easily beat me. And meanwhile, Elazer is probably just thinking like, well, I'm just going to clean up my play a little bit, and then I think I'll put up a much better fight and potentially even win the game. Now, that Overlord is heading in the right direction, but we know that these Overlords, they change courses all the time. So it's important for Elazer that he doesn't suddenly go to the left, as I feel like these Overlords so often do actually change.
Yeah, the thing is though as well, this is the second Overlord, right? So it might get right here, but even if he does, the amount he can do against this is still fairly limited. First Rax is already going to be finished, so pulling a couple of drones against this has very limited effect. This just tells them, okay, don't be overly greedy when it comes to starting up Zerglings, etc. And so
the only thing it did allow him to do, Waddy, sorry I cut you off there, is that he was still able to cancel his extractor. Because he did take the extractor before the spawning pool, but he was still able to cancel it with that scout. But you're right, like this is not the kind of scout where you're like, oh my god, the barracks is never gonna go up. It's damn late, but at least he knows it's happening. And well, let's see what kind of defense Elazer is going to be able to pull off here. He's pulling a lot of drones. He does not want any of these bunkers to go up uncontested.
INnoVation is probably fairly happy with this though, right? It's 2 racks, so you're going to be building a factory soon behind this. You go into your CC fairly soon after this as well. This is a lot of lost mine time, and so far has been able to get 1 and now 2 drones. So it's been a fairly good start from INnoVation. And yes, there's Lings coming out now, and okay, you don't have a bunker up or anything. You probably won't get a bunker up here, but I think the pressure already applied, the mining time lost already is the sort of thing where INnoVation's like, okay, I kind of like this.
I'm a bit worried about that choke point, actually, that the Marines can go in there, right? Like, this bunker indeed needs to fall. I do love that Elazer prioritizes that bunker. He now wants to get the surround, and he might be able to get the surround eventually. Does not get it yet. This is turning into a disaster, Wadi, because now there are still a lot of Marines left as well. 5 drones have already gone down. It's not like we're looking at a spine crawler going up. Oh my goodness. INnoVation is transitioning at home, but does he even have to?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get a couple more drones here, right? The Zerglings are continuing to fall. At this point, Elazer's lost so much now. This queen is also low, so it has to be careful on its own accord. And that's the only queen in the game, Roddy, so there's no second queen showing up to help out from the main base or anything like that. It's this queen or die trying, and this queen will die while trying. Now, the couple of Lings still alive on low HP will get cleaned up too. I mean, this is the issue. The more that INnoVation trades, like you said, he's transitioning, right?
It's over.
And Elazer just has to keep building Lings. He can't drone back up.
Yep, I hate to be that guy, but this one is pretty over. We do have 10 more Lings in production now, and INnoVation is gonna float his barracks home, but you look at the work account. This is not just like a decent spot for INnoVation, it's absolutely fantastic. Does he get the final drone too? Yes, of course he does get the final drone. 23 SCVs against 12 drones. What I don't know if it's me, but I almost never see this strategy lose.
Does the TLO's prediction from last week continue on to this week or so as well? This is this is obviously brutal, and INnoVation loves this follow-up as well, by the way. The 4 Hellions into a medevac, drop the main base, especially in a scenario like this. You know, you're going to skip Lings now because you feel like the threat is gone. The Lings are going to be slow anyway. There was only 1 queen up, so there's still only 1 queen. There's just so little to stop the Italians as they're going to get the creep tumor.
Yeah, he's just adding insult to injury at this point, right? And like, these are the kind of games where I almost think that Elazer wishes he would have just made 10 more Marines and just win it. Because stepping out right now always feels a bit weird. It feels a bit random. You hope for a miracle, but Elazer knows very well that whatever INnoVation does from this point, and he actually doesn't even know, right? Because he doesn't have any idea. He doesn't have any way to scout. That's what I was trying to say. But whatever INnoVation goes for here, it's always going to be good. Because Elazer has nothing. He's got like 8 Zerglings without speed. Without speed, Roddy. It's not even that they have speed. Even if they did have speed, I would hate Elazer's position. But they don't even have speed. I mean, these Hellions are going to be a nightmare to deal with. And okay, Elazer is actually still going to try, going for a little wall off. But even this kind of stuff already hurts so much because he's so far behind economically. Now he's losing more mining time as well. It ain't pretty.
Ain't pretty at all. INnoVation's going to continue to add on damage as he goes into Cloaked Banshees, which is something else that Elazer will have to find a way to deal with. It's just all of the harassment tools that... I mean, the thing is as well, he didn't even lose these Hellions. He's caused so much lost mining time. He could even get these out and use them again. He's going to go back to that mineral line one more time, but then the medevac will save the Hellions. And now he's actually got 2 Hellions, which are just going to dive into the natural. Drones are going to surround here. This wasn't actually so good for INnoVation, but... yeah, they didn't need to do too much anyway. Again, I feel like the Banshees are going to win the game at this point.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's no lair. No lair, no sport crawler. I think it's a pretty good prediction, Wadi. I like it. If you can make those kind of predictions the next time, you and I go on a fun evening out, then...
I was going to say I'll be taking TLO's job off him soon, man.
Yeah, with that 55-minute prediction. Well, guys, this is brutal. It's just a beatdown at this point. Elazer has no units. Elazer has no tech. Cloak is done, and this means GG will be called. INnoVation picks up game 2 after just a very successful 2-Rex opening. I don't know if I was imagining that, but I had the feeling while he was stutter stepping that at one moment when he had 3 Marines, he actually shot at his own Marine, his back Marine, because it took damage. I don't know if you saw that as well.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Is that happening? But I mean, besides that tiny little misstep, everything else was just perfect, right? Like the movement on the Marines, the target fire, preventing the drones from getting the surround up. And Elazer's opening was obviously far from ideal. It was hatch into an extractor, into a drone, into a spawning pool. Like that was a 114 pool. That's pretty much as late as they get normally. It is possible to defend, but yeah, everything needs to be perfect. And I do gotta say, I mean, this goes, of course, for both players, but I think if you're the one under pressure, it maybe becomes a bit more nerve-wracking. If you're playing on the American server, like Worker Micro becomes a little bit more complicated than it is on your own server, right? And of course, you can say that for INnoVation, it's harder to stutter step Marines. That's absolutely true. But I feel like as the defender there, you're like, and like it's hard to make the correct movement and the correct calls with your drones, I think.
Tough series so far for Elazer, down 0-2, and we're about to go into a game number 3 where INnoVation could just seal a deal. It is going to be Eternal Empire. We've seen Elazer being very comfortable over the last month or so, going late game on Eternal Empire. If he can get there, I think that's going to be the big question. Does INnoVation let this go to the later stages where Elazer feels comfortable? Yeah. I don't think he does.
No, I mean, might actually see some mech here, right? I feel like at this point, INnoVation is probably feeling really good about this. He could potentially 2-Rex or 3-Rex again. I mean, this is the map that started his magical comeback against Raynor, where things didn't even look good for his 2-Rex opening at first, or I don't know if that was a 3-Rex or a 2-Rex, but it was a proxy barracks opening. You know, it's obviously whenever it's 2-0 in favor of the favorite, things are always looking rough. There's no other way to put it. And I think everybody agrees that Inno was the favorite for this series. But if it's 2-0 for the favorite, who's also historically 8-0 against you in series, yeah, then I think it's safe to say that you've got a mountain to climb if you are Elazer here. He's spawning, of course, in the bottom left side of Eternal Empire. He's representing Ego Esports, and he's hoping for a magical comeback. Elazer.
2-0, looking to make his way to the lower bracket final. It is INnoVation. Sorry, not the lower bracket final, but the round before that, right? So, lower bracket semi-final, where there's only one match.
I mean, like, in a way, it was like the lower bracket final, because we have a final bracket as well. You know what? I'm going to save you here, don't worry. Like...
Yeah. I mean, it depends how you look at it. We used to call this the lower bracket final, right? It depends on how you draw the bracket.
Exactly, because after this, there is no more lower bracket. This is the ultimate bracket.
The ultimate bracket.
I am happy to see, though, that we don't have any SCVs being sent to the other side of the map. So we are going to see a quote-unquote normal game here. And I'd really love to see some battle mech. I would love to see a longer game, because I obviously always want, you know, every player in a series to show what they're capable of. And I think so far in this best of 5, Elazer has not been able to show what he's capable of. We know that he is capable of playing fantastic games in this matchup as well. But this has just been one of these series so far where it's like, man, I got nothing going so far, right? Like Nightshade didn't really feel like a game ever since I lost 5 Overlords and I was supply block all the time. And then I got Proxy Rex and the game was pretty much over. So let's just get a game going where Elazer does get his 70 or 80 drones, get some creep spread going, gets 4 or 5 bases. And even if you then fall short, it is what it is. But at least then you're able to play like a proper game of StarCraft.
Yeah, which is, I think that's all Elazer wants here, right? You know, get into a comfort zone, get into a good spot. I just think he wants to show us what he can do. And obviously so far, you know, he's been proxy racked, he's been killed by Marines, he's been killed by a Viking. So, yeah, I feel for Elazer, just get to that mid game. We know Elazer's really good. We just need him to get there, to the point where he can show it.
I'm super excited for our next series, by the way. I've been thinking about it for days. Of course, after this, guys, we'll be hopping into Zest versus Euthermal. That is a rematch, because it already happened in the upper bracket on that crazy Sunday that Wari already mentioned earlier today. And back then, you know, I was like, Zest is going to win, right? Zest's really good. He's pretty damn good against Terran. Bam, Euthermal 3-0. And I'm like, what? And everybody else is like, what? And Euthermal is like, easy. And I'm like, what? and ever since that moment, I've been like, Zest is just like not that good right now. And then Zest is like, what? And he just 3-0s everybody in the lower bracket. I'm like, man, this tournament is just crazy. And now we are going to get the rematch. And I just want to know, Wadi, how many Dark Shrines? Is it going to be more than one Dark Shrine a game? That's what I want to know.
your DSPG.
Yeah, no, it's a thing right now. Mate, like all week long, every single game, they're like, go for the Zest Dark Shrine. And I'm like, he's got 7 Ravens. Yeah, go for it. Zest would do it. I'm like, I know, but you know, normally we don't go Dark Shrine here, guys. It's like, I've got no Warp Guide. Well, Zest still would go Dark Shrine. Wow, that's a pretty quick fire.
Yep. Yeah, so this is either going to be some real aggression from Elazer, or it's just going to be the real commitment to a 2-base fire, which we've seen a little bit of. Obviously, it's more probably to kind of go like 3-base, then a lair, and then Spire. But this would be like really fast middleist. So we'll see if that's something Elazer likes. I'd say that's the most common outcome off of a 2-base lair recently, because that's a good denial on the scout.
And a lot of Zergs seem to be quite fond of this build, right? It felt like a weird gimmicky build in the past, but suddenly Zerg players started to be like, no, you can actually just turn this into a decent macro game. I do feel like that first push, when the Marine count is high, I think that's a pretty devastating one in general, right? Whoa, okay, what do we got going on over here by INnoVation? Hey, he made a Cyclone, and then he cancelled the Cyclone, and he made a tank, correct?
I think he's afraid of like a roach attack. And so he was like thinking like, I need the Cyclone. And he's like, okay, actually the roach is showing up already, so I can get away with making a tank instead. So I think INnoVation has been mind gamed heavily for not getting any info with that Reaper.
I mean, these two guys have played a lot of games against each other in the past, and INnoVation has done multiple crazy roach all-ins against INnoVation. I'll never forget that final game of Nation Wars many years ago. Poland against Korea, grand final, score is 4-4, and then Elazer went for the Ravager Rush of like the 12-4, you know, the one-base 12-4 Ravager Rush. And many years later, he actually did that same build again against INnoVation a couple of months ago. So Inno maybe has a little PTSD of playing against an Elazer that is not showing a very standard 3-hatch opening. As he's like, double bunker, that's what I need.
Yeah, definitely shows that INnoVation is like, I do not want to die to anything early. Flag.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I don't know if you saw it too.
I didn't see it, actually. So it looks like we're going to resume pretty quickly, so no real issue here. Hopefully just a little one-off, a little something, as we do have this Banshee all the way down to the bottom then. And it's going to fly, and obviously this is just a cloakless Banshee, so even if it just gets 2 or 3 drones, I think he'd be quite happy with this.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's obviously a scout. Keeping it alive is nice, but obviously mutas are going to be out. So I feel at this point you almost may as well suicide it. It does get into the main base. The queens are a bit out of position. Oh no, Elazer, this is already quite some damage. He's morphing an Oversteer as well because he feels like he's going to need one in case this is a Cloak Banshee. Boy, they used to have 2 or 3 drones. Make it 6 and a lot of lost mining time.
Yeah, and it's going to maybe buy a couple seconds on the mutas where they chase the Banshee. It's going to guarantee the... Okay, no, it's not, because the Banshee flew back into the Queen, so ignore what I'm saying. But now the mutas make their way across the map. INnoVation's already got missile turrets on the way up, so there's definitely ways the mutas can work around missile turrets, but it is just going to give him very good coverage. And because he never really went for a huge Hellion count, he's actually got a lot of Marines to help him against the mutas.
And Stim is almost done as well. Yeah. Stim is 10 seconds away from finishing up. I mean, this is obviously something that you got to be somewhat familiar with, right? If you're Elazer, you're not always going to be able to just do insane damage with your mutas immediately, but this does mean that eventually there's going to be a push and there's going to be a lot of Marines, and you're going to have a few less Zerglings and Banelings than you normally do because of the way that he opened up. And it is really important that these mutas either pick off reinforcements or keep a lot of units at home or somehow buy some time. Because in a straight-up fight, the Terran army is obviously going to be better than the Zerg army, especially because Inno already has a double eBay pumping, while the evolution chambers of Elazer just now went down.
Yeah, they only just finished up, so INnoVation is just straight up an entire set of upgrades ahead. Slightly delayed 2-2 because the mutas got the slowdown on the armory. Yeah, INnoVation. The push, whenever it comes, and it looks like it might be coming now, tanks have on siege. This is going to be really dangerous. Yes, there's going to be Baneling speed, but we saw that wasn't enough in the game on Nightshade, right? You know, Baneling speed didn't really have much of an impact at all. So I don't like this either. These Marines got a lot of shots off before they got cleaned up there, and that was a lot of Lings going down.
Yep, a couple of slow Banelings in the center of the map. Baneling speed is almost done, but I'm with you. I wasn't really feeling that. I understood what Elazer tried to do, right? He's like, I can just grab like 5 Marines with just a couple of Lings and mutas. But then the reinforcements showed up as well. And then all of a sudden, Elazer, I think, lost a few more units there than he was supposed to. He's got a little bit of creep going. Maybe he just goes for it here as the tanks are not sieged yet. Baneling speed is done. One of the Banelings does get a beautiful connection, but that's it, Wardy. It's a single Baneling with a beautiful connection. Once again, Elazer is floating a lot of resources, like that's 13 or 1400 resources in the bank. He needs to spend it, doesn't have the larva. Oh no, man, it's a disaster.
Yeah. These Banelings weren't ready as well, right? He used the first round and the next round wasn't ready to go, and that's always a good indicator of the Zerg being in a bad spot, because it means you have to wait to fight, which means the Terran gets position, the Terran gets pre-split, sieged up. I mean, in this case, the Terran straight up just kills the 4th base, and now Elazer will launch a counter-attack, but he's been supply blocked yet again. He lost an Overlord in the middle of the map when he was supply blocked before. Supply blocked again now. Marines counter against these Lings, and yeah, nothing is going right for Elazer.
All these guys so far today have been bulletproof, right? I feel like every single counterattack has been unsuccessful. There was one circling counterattack on Nightshade that was decent. Elazer is gonna go for it. He did make 7 more Mudas. If we can just get the Marines here, the high Muda count might be able to clean this up. But these last few Marines, they won't go down without a fight. And even if Elazer does finally get this, he gets it at the cost of so many of his expensive Mudas. The reinforcements show up as well, Vardy. This could very well be it. This just wasn't his series. GG gets called. INnoVation is just monster moding over here in this lower bracket. That was a very convincing series by Inno.
I feel like Elazer lost 5 Overlords to a Viking and everything just fell apart.
No, you're not wrong.
He did not play his series, right? Like, we know Elazer can be better than this. You have to be better than this to get this far in the tournament, to take down the players which he's taken down. I feel like this is a very sad ending for Elazer in this series or in the tournament overall, because he had a really great run, and to lose like this to INnoVation is just, he can do so much better. And then, you mentioned being a stinger, losing a Soon, that upper bracket, and I think now even more so, right? Because you look at that upper bracket and you look at how Trap looked today, maybe Elazer could have gone to the grand finals in that winner bracket as well. So, brutal way to say goodbye to the tournament and goodbye to Elazer, but that's StarCraft sometimes, and in fairness, INnoVation was absolutely the player to be on the side of today.
Yeah, gotta say though, ever since INnoVation dropped to the lower bracket in that very first week that he had, right? Because INnoVation obviously went up against Su. He already was in the round of 16, so Inno did not play in the round of 24 of the upper bracket or winners bracket round 1. I mean, Inno has been on one hell of a roll. Obviously taking out Solar 3-1, then he took out Cure 3-1. We saw him beat Mana last week. Then the second day he beat Raynor in that insane series. And now he just managed to beat Elazer as well. That's 5 best of 5s in a row with his tournament life on the line, where INnoVation managed to get the job done. And that's turning into quite the run, Waddy.
That is an amazing run here so far. And we will, of course, see INnoVation one more time today, because we have him playing the winner of the next match.
We stand as one.
Are